What's up, guys? Welcome back. Cam here, and today I would like to show you, after weeks of printing and post-processing, I finally completed the Faraam Knights helmet from Dark Souls 2. First up, some details about this print. I used PLA, which is the most basic form of filament on any printer, really, and I printed this helmet at about 10% infill. Some of the pieces were at 15%, but I'll get into that later. Moving on to timing, each one of these pieces took roughly about 10 hours. For the helmet itself, the accent pieces were anywhere between 6 to 8, so in total the entire helmet to print was somewhere about like 50, maybe 60 hours in total, give or take. You know, this is in between work and being a full-time dad and all that. As you can see here, though, I had to split this helmet into 4 different pieces because it's way too big for my printer. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. Maybe in the future I can get a bigger printer and I can print the entire thing in one go. But at least it gives me the excuse to show you guys my slicer software and how I went about achieving this in the first place. Now, that being said, this is the biggest project I've done on this printer. So the challenge that came with it, I felt like because of the other prints that I did, I had more than enough experience to give it a shot, and I'm glad I did. In the beginning, it was a little overwhelming just for the sheer amount of post-processing that I knew I was going to have to do. But regardless of all of that, just pushing on through all the work, the end result is insanely worth it. I would do this all over again, and I'm more than confident now that since I know exactly more or less what to do, I could definitely complete another helmet faster. Now, moving on to the actual print though, I started with the 2 bottom pieces of the helmet. From here, it's the same old song and dance. Remove all the supports and start sanding. If you don't have one of these nail filers, I suggest you get one because honestly, it's the best tool I had to get into all of those crevices. It worked so good, I'm gonna keep it and probably have to buy my wife a new one. But seeing the helmet take shape was pure fuel to keep me engaged and keep me going forward. After the completion of the bottom half of the helmet, I started on the top, and I just rinsed and repeated the exact same process. Here's a quick shot of what that looked like. Once the entire base of the helmet was completed, I worked on the accents, starting with the forehead plate. This piece in particular was probably the easiest one to do. It also was the fastest. It took me no time at all to print. I think it was like 4 hours, which saying out loud sounds ridiculous because 4 hours is a long time. But in printing time, that's actually extremely fast, especially the level of detail that the forehead plate came out with. I was extremely happy. Now, with the crest, I did have some trouble. I had 2 failures due to bed adhesion, and I'm actually very thankful that stuff like this happens because when it does, it forces me to go back and learn a bunch of stuff that I didn't know previously. And if you approach all of your problems with willingness to learn instead of frustration, that will benefit you more than anything else in the long run. And finally, after all my pieces were printed, I put plastic wood putty all over the crevices, gaps, and imperfections. And when that was dry, I gave that a quick sanding as well. Now that all my surfaces are prepared, I can start priming all of my pieces. After all the priming was said and done, and I had colored each piece of the helmet in a gloss black paint, I gave them a tad bit of a sanding, and after that I put clear coat. And when I put the clear coat, if you look closely, you can see that each one of my pieces orange peeled. Now, if I was doing a Mandalorian helmet or something of that nature, I would be upset. But because I'm going for like a very rough, rustic steel look, I was actually quite happy with how it turned out. After completing the application of the rub and buff, I let each piece cure and set for over 24 hours. I patted the inside of the helmet, and after some minor assembly, the Faraam Knights helmet was finally ready to wear. If you made it to the end of this video, I honestly could not be more thankful, and please consider subscribing to my YouTube or my TikTok. Thanks again. I really enjoyed making this. I do plan on making the entire suit, so if you like this video, maybe consider sticking around for the rest of that. Thanks again.